What does world-class real estate look like to you?
You've got to have the customer focus.
It looks consistent. Understanding the role that you play, but also understanding your own business.
I think estate agency is a really easy job made difficult by the people who work in it.
When you've got clients that you've worked with before and they are proactively and actually going out there telling people how good you are, being your advocators, bringing you more business recommendations.
Fundamentally starts with relationships.
This episode is brought to you in partnership with Iceberg Digital. Hello and welcome to another episode of the World Class Real Estate Podcast. My name is Mark. I'm joined by Mr. Ian Macbeth, fresh off some really long running race. How are you, mate?
Fresh is not the word I'm going to use. Not the word I'm going to use. Yeah, little one was in at 5:15 today. I'm second night after missing a whole night's sleep. So yeah, just a little groggy for the rest of the week really. And I've run out of my Space Goods mushroom tea as well, which is like my coffee that everyone else might have in the morning. So I'm running on no sleep and no caffeine today. So who knows what this podcast is going to deliver?
I'm sure we'll be all right. I wanted to, because we talk about your running races and the achievements quite a lot, but I think it's important that we try and make it, in the nicest way possible, relatable to people, because I know there was a lot of estate agents that were involved in Enduro 24, but I think if you listen to the podcast and you don't do some extreme sports, then it might be difficult to relate to those achievements. And I'm not by any way, shape or form discounting those achievements, because they are absolutely incredible. But what I want to focus on when we just talk about your weekend before we dive in to today's episode is something I think I picked up on one of your social posts. So, and that was about discipline, in terms of discipline and saving yourself from yourself. So last year, if you've just turned on this podcast, last year you did a lot of running and carried a few injuries into the start of this year. And, you know, when I saw you at times, you were struggling, and that really played its part. But is that a lesson that you've learned with running that we can relate to estate agency, in terms of you don't always have to do what your ego wants you to do to try and achieve your goals?
Yeah, I think so. I think because last year I tried to do 3 massive things in a short space of time. And this is relating to business, career, anything really. If you set yourself 3 really big things that are, almost you should focus on one of them and solely focus on one of them, but you've got 3. It's very hard to achieve all 3, especially when it's involved like really mental focus and physical in this case. From a business point of view, it does involve physical stuff, because it's, the work, the sleep, the eating, the training, the everything else that goes with it. But I think last year what I learned, because I'm still new in this running game, I'm 6 years into it, and there's people that have been running their whole lives that I'm competing against. So last year I learned that, and what happened by trying to do all 3 things and letting my ego try and drive me to complete all 3 things was just massive fatigue, massive injury, and I couldn't ultimately do the 3 races that I'd signed up for this year because I was injured for all of them. So it's kind of like swings and roundabouts. So I reset on things, and then I focused on the one big race that I've got this year, which is in September, and made that my A race, made that my everything, and wanted to have fun at the London Marathon, wanted to have fun at Enduro 24 this weekend, because I haven't run solo for 3 years. I've run solo twice before, and I did 100 miles in both of those. But this year I wanted to go and enjoy it, but I also wanted to go and break some of my big PBs, which was, can I smash my 100k PB? Can I smash my 100 mile PB? That was all my focus was really, which I know sounds a bit wacky, but so that was the 5th time I've done 100 miles, and I managed to do it this weekend 4.5 hours quicker than I did it the first time I did it. So, that's a really cool progression for me for like 4 years, hard work and discipline. I've got no talent. That's what I put in the post, because I'm not a runner. I'm not built like a runner. I've got 0 running talent at all. But it's come from just discipline, hard work and consistency. And that's the bit that probably people can take for in business is, we're estate agents we're not necessarily like talented people, are we? It's not like we've gone, oh, I'm going to be an estate agent, I'm so talented at it. The good
Well,
ones,
everyone falls into it.
yeah, everyone falls into it, and the good ones are the ones that do that little bit extra, work that little bit harder, do work smarter. In my world of ultra running, educate themselves, learn from their failures. I had a failure this time, which was nutrition, and at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was spewing my guts up, and I still had 25 miles to run to do the 100 miles, and I couldn't even take water on. And that was new for me. That was a new experience to kind of almost embrace and go, right, well, how do we manage this? Because I'm not stopping.
Embrace that. What's wrong here, man?
Yeah. So these are all new lessons that you learn, and I learned how to manage that relatively effectively. I kind of then digested why that happened, and I think I know why that happened. I won't do that again, and I know that if I do start spewing my guts up again, I can still run for 5 hours on nothing, basically.
Yeah. So it's the discipline from that, and then an incredible achievement. Those, to take 4.5 hours off at any time, even if you run for that length of time, is real progress. And I can see how pleased and proud you are of that. But I think from your post, were you right at the top when you basically said, right, I'm done. I've achieved what I wanted to achieve and reined it back in? Because that's the bit that I wanted to dissect. Can you just explain that if people haven't seen your social post?
Yeah, so the way Endure works is 5 mile laps. So there's 3,500 runners running around a 5 mile course in the woods. It was raining all Saturday through to about 8 o'clock. So the course was totally torn to pieces. It was mud. It was a mud bath. And people do go off like the clappers. I wanted to do this 100K relatively quickly. So people were letting me know, okay, you're in 12th position after 4 laps. You've moved up to 8th. You've moved up to 5th. And then I think by about lap 6, which would have been about 4 and a bit hours in, maybe 5 hours in, I was in 2nd place. And the person in 1st place is the guy that had won it the last 2 years. Absolutely nuked everyone. A 2:30 marathon guy, very experienced, and he was a lap ahead of me, I think, but I was in 2nd place. Pretty much from that point, I then ran 2 laps with him and the race director that was out with him, even though he was a lap ahead of me. I saw him, so I started speaking to him, and the race director that was just come off his shift and wanted to run a lap with him, we were chatting, and he said, "Oh, what's your name?" And I said, "Oh, I'm in Macbeth." And he goes, "Oh, you two are 1st and 2nd." And then started just taking a bit of footage of us chatting and running together, which was the first point where I was like, "Oh, that's quite cool and unique." So anyway, the leader said to me, "I'm doing 100 miles and then I'm stopping, basically. So if you want this is yours." And I was like, "Well, that's not really my target." And there was another like 16 hours to go or whatever at this point, 14 hours to go. But then by the time I'd got to the morning, so I did my 100K PB, walloped that just over 10 hours. By the time I got to the morning and I'd gone through 90 miles, I'd made the decision that I was doing the 100 miles and I was stopping because the nutrition, I couldn't take any water on. I didn't want to damage myself. There was a few niggles going on, but I could move, but I was getting black spots in my eyes. I was starting to fall into trees going up the hills, and I was close to passing out, basically. So I thought I'll do 10 miles more and then I'll stop. As you do, yeah. So I did it. I got my goal. I sat down. I had about a 30-second moment in my head where I thought, do I carry on or do I not? And I decided not to, and decided to stop. But the challenge in my head that we're talking about here, the battle between ego and discipline, was the fact that when I did stop, he had stopped as well. We were in joint 1st place, and the person behind me was about a whole lap behind me. If I could have taken fuel on, I could have just steadily run for the next 25 miles and won the whole competition. But I couldn't take fuel on. It wasn't my A race. I'd achieved what I wanted to achieve. I put ego to one side. My wife called me and said, the kid's on the phone on loudspeaker. She said, "You're smashing it," because it was like 7:15 at this point. You're in 1st place now. And the kids were like, "Go on, Daddy." And I said to her, "I've stopped. I've taken my shoes off 10 minutes ago. I feel sick. This is what's happened. I'm really happy with what I've done. And my 9-year-old in the background said, "Daddy, you can't stop. You're going to win." And so it was quite tough, actually. It was quite tough. But I still last night I was lying in bed, had a little bit of moment of regret. Couldn't get to sleep thinking, oh, what if? But you don't remember what you sort of start to forget the physical state that you were in. It sort of, your body starts to take it out, and then you can just think, oh yeah, I could have done a gel and I could have done some caffeine, but I couldn't even stomach water, and I couldn't eat till like 4 o'clock that afternoon. So I think I made the right decision, and my legs don't feel too bad for it. And sometimes you've got to put ego to one side and just do the plan. That's the key thing. What's the plan? The plan was that, and then the plan's September. And I think I'll be better in September for making that decision and not going for the win, which seems crazy, but I think it was the right move.
Yeah, and I think that's the point that I wanted to talk about and focus on, how as estate agents, because when we ride the waves of estate agency, and it is waves, isn't it? You have ups and you have downs. It can sometimes be a challenge that you don't get too carried away, particularly riding the up wave, and let ego turn into arrogance. And that's the sort of focus that I wanted on this conversation before we talk other stuff, is that it's really easy to get carried away. And that was a really good example. I didn't know that story about your daughter, but that could be some existing clients, past clients, colleagues, pumping up your tires and saying how amazing you've done. And it's really easy to go off script, or to, like I say, turn ego into arrogance in estate agency. Whereas actually, I think the lesson here is that sometimes, it might be being first, having the most market share we talked about last week, didn't we? It might be that those measures aren't actually the measures that are really important to you. And you can see from this, example and story, incredible personal achievement. But I think actually, it's really easy to get carried away by the noise and the prospect of victory in this case, but the prospect of listings and all of that sort of stuff. I think as estate agents, it's a good lesson to anyone listening that actually the bigger picture is always more important, and don't let your ego get in the way of trying to achieve the big goal for maybe the little wins. And it's quite hard to do.
Having the big picture is really important. I think that's the first step that a lot of people don't have correctly lined out, is what are you trying to achieve from the sacrifice and from the effort and from the discipline. And if you're looking, say you're a branch manager, or you're an owner operator, with a single branch or 2 or 3 or whatever the setup is, your career, negotiator, what's that year defining thing that you're trying to achieve? That one thing that you can turn around and go, that was the thing that I got from this year.
If you're an estate agent listening to this, I want you to think about something for a second. Are you and your team busy, or are you actually being productive? Because most agencies right now are drowning in admin, juggling disconnected systems, chasing portal leads, and wondering why profits aren't where they really should be. Iceberg Digital have taken a completely different approach. Instead of selling another CRM, they've built what they call an AI operating system for estate agents, combining prospecting, marketing, CRM, compliance, even websites into one connected ecosystem. The goal? To increase your revenue per employee, because the agencies that win over the next few years won't be the ones working harder, they'll be the ones working smarter, with systems that actually do the heavy lifting. If you want to future-proof your agency instead of just surviving the next market shift, go and book a demo at icebergdigital.co.uk. That's icebergdigital.co.uk.
Maybe, your branch, for example, has got, it would put market share to one side. It's got quite a poor average fee, and turnover target hasn't been hit for the last 3 years. And you've got an exchange target of £500,000, and you've hit low 4s for the last couple of years, and that the office can do £500,000, and that's your ultimate focus. Well, that has to be the single biggest focus. Now, the sacrifice to that might be that you lose some listings because you're pushing the fee up, because not necessarily do you get more market share to get the 500k. You're going to work on efficiencies. The sacrifice might be that a member of staff that's been there for 10 years that's just simply underperforming and sitting on their hands needs an ultimatum or needs to be changed. But remember what the big one was. Remember what the big target is. The target is to get over £500,000. And by the 1st of July, which is in a couple of weeks, probably around the time this podcast goes out, you're halfway through the year. You kind of know where you're going to be. So you've got to make this decision right at the start, you know, in November, in December, so that you can strategically set yourself up for the plan for the year. With that particular race, I made a decision 4 weeks before, when I was feeling how I was feeling, that I was going to go for the sub 11 hour 100k, and I was going to go for a sub 20 hour 100 miles. So that was in my training over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks. That's all I've been thinking about. That's all I've been focusing on. So, and it just so happened that I went through lap 20 with 48 seconds to spare for a sub 19 lap 20, you know. So I'd so focused on this 11 and 7 that I wanted to do in terms of times, that the 7 o'clock was 48 seconds in it, you know. Which is, it shows when you do focus on something so militantly and you've got a plan in place, you can literally hit it on the head if you just follow the system.
Yeah, and that lesson can apply to anyone for anything, but in business. And that's the conversation I wanted to have. I wanted to make it relatable to people. It might be, you know, for people, you know, going out and doing the first 5K or whatever it is. It doesn't matter what level you're at. The whole point is having the vision. I've just read this book, actually, The 12-Week Year by Brian Moran, and I brought all our team members this book, and we're going to have a training session on it this morning. The thing that starts with is have your vision, have that big vision, as you talked about there. And it also talks about not having loads of goals. I think you mentioned it when we talked about New Year resolutions and planning and simplifying those goals. And I've done that. I've simplified my goals this year, and I've worked with the 12-week year over the last 10 weeks now, 8 weeks maybe, and having less but achieving more within those actually is a really good way of doing it. But we're going to talk a little bit about strategy, and it's one of the things that you can use as a strategy as a business to not try and have too many focuses. I don't think you can have that. Like you say, if it's a revenue target of £500,000, say, then that's the defining goal of the year, and that then allows people to focus on it and make the decision whether they say 1.5 or 2% in the living room. It really helps to give clarity, and sometimes these things don't have to be really complicated. Well, I would say most of the time they don't have to be really complicated. Simplicity is better.
Yeah, and when you've got that big goal, and again, sort of relating it back, how I tend to relate it back now because of what I'm passionate about, but I always think about what's the most, so the plan and the goal is the target, right? That's the business target. That's in my case, the running target, but the same for business. But then you can only do that. So I can only get that 19-hour 100 miler with fuel, with nutrition.
Yeah.
Turns out for the last part of it, also without. But it's not the point of the podcast. The relatability of the nutrition for me in business is the culture. Yeah. And the culture is the fuel. And you have to think about that. To fuel a car, it needs petrol, it needs diesel, it needs electric. To fuel a runner, it needs nutrition. To fuel a business, it needs culture. It needs that environment. And yes, the kit and the shoes and everything like that is the software and the tech, and, all of that sort of stuff just continually advances, shoes advance, tech advance. But the culture, that's the ultimate part of what you're going to do to get that 500,000, because everyone has to be bought into it. Everyone's got to be focused in the same direction, but they've got to believe in it, and they've got to want to do it, and they've got to be prepared to make that sacrifice when they're sat in the room and the client says, I want to use you, but I'm not paying any more than 1.25%. And you need to walk back with 1.5%, because that's the minimum threshold that you're going to do. That's the moment when you've got to be strong, and you've got to go again, and you've got to remember
through that comfort barrier.
Yeah, and the culture will dictate whether that individual does it or not.
Yeah. And so we talked last week about the agent who probably doesn't push that and values volume over quality. And today we're going to talk a little bit more about a different sort of agent, one that is perhaps a little bit more strategic in the properties that they take, but also one that isn't a list at all costs agent, but actually has a plan with an agent. So what do you think, or how highly do you value the importance of having a strategic plan as an agent bringing a property to market? Because we see loads of people criticize the agent that just whacked it on Rightmove, and yet I still think there's loads of agents that do that. So how important is having a strategic plan? And if agents haven't got one, where should they start?
Well, most people know my background being avocado, the blueprint, the beat the portals, the social media strategy. I'm not going to go through that because that's individual to the agents and it's specific to the agents. In fact, the beat the portals is copyrighted now, but it's everything that built us in terms of how we can operate in the hyper local marketplace with a point of difference. But what I did do before this podcast is I got all of the articles. I got chat to create all of the articles that have been published in 2026 by HubSpot, Kantar, Google, Neil Patel, Mark Ritson, and a couple of others as well. So all the key influential kind of marketeers, if you like, that have published articles in 2026. And then I asked them to build a 7-point house marketing strategy for 2026 to see what it would come up with. And the most interesting thing is, bear in mind this is AI producing this, is it said to me the first thing is to lead with a clear why this home story. And it then criticizes AI, even though it is AI, and says AI is flooding the market with average content. So strong brands now need a sharper point of view and a more human storytelling. So it's actually telling us, how over the last couple of years, everyone's been like, get AI to make your property descriptions, blah, 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 blah. AI is now telling us not to do that, which is quite interesting. So it says things like this, which is quite interesting. You're like this. For a house, don't just list the features, build the emotional hook. The kitchen is great for Sunday mornings. The garden is perfect for summer evenings. The school run location that changes a family's life. Powerful.
That's massive, isn't it? But like, how different is that? And it says the same thing, but how different is that to close to local amenities?
Just listing out shit.
Yeah.
I just thought that's its first point. So, point number one of this 7-point plan, and it's got a link to one of the HubSpot articles in here, which is very much around human storytelling and not using features and AI type content, but actually bringing the human power back to it. 2 is interesting. Make the home findable everywhere, not just on Rightmove. Buyers are searching through Google, through different portals, through TikTok, through YouTube, through Instagram, AI for answers, local recommendations, AI-led search across all sorts of different things like videos and ads. So the listing needs portal copy, Google-friendly local content, short video, YouTube titles, social captions, FAQs, and location-led snippets. So it's basically just saying, make sure you're putting it everywhere and not just slapping it on Rightmove and hoping for the best. Yeah. So, I like to think that we at Avocado do that quite well, but there's still some things that you can pull out there. But I know a lot of people are not, they're not putting it down as a Google product, for example, on their Google My Business, or, maybe people have a YouTube channel or a TikTok channel, maybe they don't. At least have 2 or 3 of the social channels, I would say is a good one. But that makes sense, right? Because people, you just want to have the best opportunity for the property be found by the buyer, I think, really.
Well, it's like, our job is to expose property to as many people, and agents would normally have a problem if someone says they don't want a for sale board. So if you're not utilizing numerous, and I know it's difficult because there are so many, so I'm not saying use all of them. I think you've got to pick where you think in your area is most effective, and really double down on a few. But you've got to use numerous. I think if you're just sticking it on Rightmove or just sticking it on Facebook and Rightmove, you're probably limiting your exposure. In a similar way to if the client says we don't want a for sale board, you'll probably say, it's not ideal. We don't want to limit the exposure. It's exactly the same as that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think this leads into the point 3 leads into exactly that, because a lot of people struggle with the content. So what this one says is create one hero video and then cut it into 10 short assets. Short form video remains one of the strongest marketing ways on any channel, but it's not just random posting. It needs to be good highlights, short video, brand points is a major driver in 2026. So you could use a 60-second walkthrough, a 20-second teaser, a 10-second hook, a kitchen clip, a garden clip, the local area clip, 3 reasons to view, a story reel, face-to-face with the agent on camera, or buyer FAQs. But that's quite a nice way to do it, because you could turn that all into one video and then just chop it into 6. So that's quite a cool and easy thing that I think anyone can do, right? Because we know the house as a estate agent, so just get on camera and talk through it, you know. But there's your recipe: 60-second walkthrough, 20-second teaser, a 10-second hook, then maybe the key features, so be it kitchen, garden, local area, 3 reasons you should view. I think that works really well. If there's a story reel that you can involve, you know, something about the house that tells the story, and buyer FAQs, you know, what a great idea. It's not one that I put out there. We have all the buyer FAQs now, don't we, through various tech, but you know, what are the top 5 frequently asked questions that buyers will ask about this? You know, that's
how old's the boiler?
Yeah, exactly. The things someone said, it's, I don't know if it was in Mastermind or something, but what's going on in the house that you can't see? It was
hidden value, the invisible value. You know, that was it was Lee Woodward, I think, talked about it. We've got some little plaques, and it works really well in open houses. I think it's a little bit less effective here, but I think at viewing stage, if you've got little plaques saying the loft is boarded, you know, for example, that's the questions that you get at viewing, because people feel like sometimes they've got to ask questions. What are the neighbours like? Is the loft boarded? How old and where is the boiler? If you've got things pointing out those answers to those questions at a viewing, I think it increases the experience. If you're doing it on a video, then I think it just solidifies people wanting to view. You're asking the question before they ask, and that's a great way of delivering, you know, good quality customer service. It's the equivalent to getting a client nodding in the living room, isn't it? People say you want to get the client nodding and agreeing with you. It's the equivalent of that on the buyer side.
Yeah, I think that's great. What an easy video to do for like 20 seconds on anything, you know. I was thinking, if my house was going up for sale on Friday, we've had roller garage doors fitted, so that's in my mind as a seller, that's something I'd want spoken about. Now the estate agent might just go, oh yeah, well, it's just a garage door, but to me, because it's something I've just invested in, it's something that I would want to be, you know, shown off. So I'd love that little clip of the garage doors, you know, going up, and the fact that they're alarmed and they've got a light and a draft, you know, blocker so that a mouse can't get in, and little things like that. That's now important to me. That's what sold it to me. So
he's into these garage doors now.
Yeah, well, that's the most recent thing that I've bought. So that's often the case with sellers, isn't it? Is asking that question, what's the most recent upgrade you did? Because it's probably the thing that's most passionate to them as well, the most important thing to them.
And that is the classic thing of starting to close at advice meeting, valuation, whatever you call it in your business. But if you make that a habit at your advice meeting to ask that question, great question, what's the most recent thing you've invested in? Right, great, we'll put that in our buyer FAQs video. Have you seen one of our buyer FAQs video? And then you're almost asking for permission to list the house. Is it okay if we list that in our buyer FAQ video? Yeah, of course it is. And it's just, you're moving them along the decision-making process without them even realizing that you're doing it. So I think that's a really nifty, easy little video to do that can actually probably help you close, as well as sell more houses, because your buyers are more informed. It'll actually help you close if you're clever with it as well.
Yeah, and it gives you steps, doesn't it? It gives you strategy, because you can say, right, Wednesday night we're going to do the garage doors, and then on the following Wednesday night the property's video is going to go out again, and we're going to talk about the gas fireplace that you've had fitted in there, you know, the $5,000 electric one with the remote control. We're going to show that off, and then the next one we're going to talk about the 100 square meters worth of patio that you've had landscaped and put down. And they're the 3 things, and we can do that over the next 3 weeks, plus everything else that's going on in the background, you know. And that's a really cool way to kind of, you know, show the seller that you've got a plan, basically. Point 4, this is obviously because it's got my chat history, so I don't think it's found avocado by the same as all the other things. It's using my chat history, but it said market before the portals. This is where avocados beat the portals idea is bang on. Create a demand. You know, everyone knows the story. I don't need to go on about this one, but the goal is simple: launch with momentum, not with silence, is the final sentence it says, which I quite like. Point 5, I won't go into too deeply, but effectively optimize for AI search and buyer questions. You know, we've spoke about that before, and I think let's keep it to the real gritty stuff that we can do. This one I do like though, and this they've taken something that Neil Patel, which I don't know, he's a big Google guy if anyone's kind of followed him in any way. Use paid media where intent is highest. So what he's effectively saying is moving towards channels tied to conversion, owned data and measurable outcomes. For a house, don't just boost a post, run targeted campaigns to likely movers, local upsizers, school catchment buyers, relocation audiences, and retarget people who watch the video. So again, having strategy within the paid. First of all, are you doing paid? If you're not doing paid, make sure you're paying for the right stuff. Because I mean, I've still got avocado agents that just boost 50 quid every listing. And it's better than what's happening in their local marketplace, but I still think it's bonkers that they're not properly targeting who they're spending that 50 quid on to see, if that makes sense. I was talking to our ads guy yesterday, and we were just talking about the surveying business actually, and we were talking about a new commercial page that we've just designed. But what we want to do is we want to drive Google traffic to that commercial page, and then anyone that lands on that Google page, on that page from Google traffic, from search traffic, we're then going to serve them meta videos about commercials, only that page. So we're almost using search traffic to the website and then retargeting them with more friendly videos to try and push them back to convert. And that strategy in one, you know, sort of small area, but you get the best bang for buck, right? That's the key thing.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it can be, with Meta now, it's really hard to break it down. And I've struggled with that because we used to do that really effectively. But the thing there that's really easy to do is to retarget, whether that's on the website, whether that's on specific pages, or whether it's someone who's watched the videos as he suggested there.
Yeah. And the point 7 is something that Kirsty mentioned when she was on the show from Frank Marketing. Measure, you know, measure everything, you know what's working, track video views, saves, shares, inquiries, viewing requests, portal performance, buyer feedback, price, positioning. If it needs adjusting, you know, track everything is effectively what it's saying. And I haven't read this, but I'll read it now, so hopefully it's good. In this is the summary, if you like. In 26, the best house marketing is not photos on Rightmove. It's a story, a video, a database, social media, AI search, paid targeting, and proper follow-up, all working together before the portal launch, not after the phone stops ringing.
Yeah. And
Probably
so
a big summary.
If someone wants that, are you happy to share that if someone gets in touch?
Yeah, it stays in my chat search. So if they drop me a DM or whatever, I'll just copy and paste it and swing it straight over. But I just think that's a really nice way for estate agents, without using my strategy or your strategy, using what the marketing experts would kind of define as a really good way to do it. Taking back the power. You know, James Cocker from Home Feed talks about it all the time, trying to own the data and take back the power. It's not necessarily beating the portals, which is just the sort of hashtag that we've used. It's trying to be valuable before the portals is probably a good way to phrase it.
Yeah, and also when you launch the portals, like you say, launch with momentum. We've had a couple of properties where we've had off-market viewings, launched a portal, not had any viewings, and it's like, well, there's something wrong with the marketing of this home. Freehold versus leasehold is probably the issue with this particular one. But when you get the off-market viewings and then the portal doesn't do the job, you know that there's something wrong, so you can have that conversation with the client. It's quite a effective way of saying, look, we've got something wrong here, because we did the job before and then it's not quite gone according to plan, so we have to change something. So that's a good thing. One of the things I would say about this strategy as well, you might be listening and thinking, crikey, we can't do all of that, or we can't do, those things. We don't necessarily, have the time or the expertise. I think one of the most important things at being this type of agent versus the, stack it high and sell it cheap agent is having a plan. Communicating that plan to the client will quite often be enough to make you stand out. And that plan doesn't have to be exactly what you said. It doesn't have to be what Avocado do. It doesn't have to be what Moving Works do. But it's whatever that plan is to your agency. It might be that you launch your properties, part of it might be that you launch your properties a particular way on a particular day. If you have a good reason for doing that, communicate it with the client, because it's the type of thing that when you've got a plan and you share it with them, that they can then start to appreciate the value in your service. Whereas if you're not communicating a plan and you're talking about how many properties you sell and all that sort of stuff, then it's a very different process. We've had clients go through the plan and then when they come to market say, right, well, at what stage does this stage happen? And it's a really effective way of standing out in a crowded market. And sometimes I just literally get the plan out and say, right, let's talk through what we do. Not maybe all of it because it's quite in depth, but if you've communicated that plan to the client before you get in the living room, sometimes the client will ask you questions specifically on the plan. And I quite like that type of conversation because it shows that the client is invested and has actually taken the time to, read the document that you produced on how you're going to sell the house and the strategy. So
yeah, totally agree. I mean, if you think you were inviting a marketing agency into your business to effectively pitch to see why they would be a good fit to work with you, and you're going to pay them $1,500, $2,000 a month or whatever to be your marketing agency, and then they sat down and they said, well, look, we've got fantastic customer service, we've been around for 15 years. We work with a lot of estate agents in the market and we'd love to work with you too. You kind of go, well, I need a bit more meat on the bones than that. Like, what's the plan? Like, how, what are you going to do for me? Yeah, but we've got great customer service and we've got 5-star reviews on Google and we've been around for 20 years. And you'd be like, well, yeah, but I want you to market something for me. Our job is the same. We're being asked to market the home. So you can't just say we do have good customer service and I've got 6 people in the office and we've got after sales support and, we've got access to Rightmove and, we've been around for 20 years and we've got 112 Google reviews. But that's not a marketing plan. You're just showing things off. Like when you actually look at it, it is a bit bonkers, isn't it?
It goes back to ego, doesn't it? The conversation we had right at the start, check your ego at the door, talk them through your plan, how it relates to them, how it's going to help them, and see the success, go through the roof, because it's not about, I talk about it all the time, it's not about you, it's about them. And this plan enables you to showcase your ability and how it will benefit them.
Yeah. Story selling, that's a real key part of it. I think that's our job now is, as properties, as the amount of properties on the market keeps increasing, the stock levels are rising, making that home stand out from the crowd is going to be the story that we can put together. And that's the one takeaway. I don't think you need to do all 7 of those points tomorrow, but everyone can do the first point. Everyone can stop listing features and start selling a story a little bit better. I think that's the biggest takeaway that anyone can implement, as of this afternoon, basically.
Just if you're using, AI says don't use AI. If you're using AI, just reprogram it. Just change your prompt a little bit. Get that prompt from Ian, stick it in your AI and say, when you write a property description, do it in this way and watch the difference. And I think it just goes to show how many people probably are using the AI cookie cutter approach. It's there to make us more efficient. It's not there to dehumanize us. And I think that's a really good lesson that we can take from today as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as you know, we do this podcast. We love the industry. We want to see it improve and get better. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please share it out on social, share it with colleagues, reach out. If you do want the list, reach out to Ian or myself. I'm Mark Worrall. He's Ian Macbeth. Thank you very much for listening. And we'll see you again next week.